Welcome back to another episode of CATV Tech Talk. I'm your host, Drew. I'm here with our co-host, Jesse. Jesse, how's it going?
What's up, man?
You know what we're talking about today?
Attacking the trouble call.
How to attack the trouble call. Our favorite thing. Jesse, which one did you like doing more? Did you like doing trouble calls or installs better?
I like trouble calls, but only when I didn't have to rebuild the whole fucking thing because the install sucked.
Jeez, me and you are so ass opposite on all of this, which I think is great for our listeners because then there could be like a, what do they call it? Like an Edward Jacob thing going on here. I very much so enjoyed my installs. I don't know. To me, it was better to start fresh and build from point A to point B and know every aspect of that cable. That little mini cable system.
I didn't mind the wiring part, but I hated fucking installing equipment.
Yeah.
That was the part that just killed the installing deal. And I knew at a trouble call, the worst possible situation for the most part, I got to replace a modem or a box, right?
Yep.
But that was like the worst case. I don't have to unhook carry in fucking 15 pieces of equipment and hook all this shit up, you know? So, yeah, I fucking hate it. Like, I like the wiring part of an install. Like, if I would have had the perfect job for myself as a tech, it would have been, give me 2 houses a day, I'll go wire them perfect, and the next day some fuckhead can come in and hook everything up.
Yeah, no shit. So we're going to talk about all different types of trouble calls. We're going to talk about video trouble calls, internet trouble calls, voice trouble calls. We'll even get into a little bit of home security trouble calls. The only thing I don't think we're going to cover too much on would probably be the business class trouble calls. I was not a business class tech. I did business class way back when anybody did it. It pretty much warm body that could handle it, they would send there. But Jesse, did you do any type of business class?
I did business trouble calls.
Yeah.
I never did the installs. To me, the business team were a bunch of pussies and they bitched all the time because they had like 2 jobs a day and then our numbers were still better than theirs and their supervisor was an asshole. So
all right,
I didn't do them.
Class text again. That is catvtechtalk@gmail.com. Attention.
No, truth be told, man, like in our system, when we were forced to do that, we didn't do the installs. We did all the service calls because we were so far out from the main office.
Yep.
If I got a chance to repeat those motherfuckers, I did.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I didn't give a shit if I walked in and changed the TV channel like we talked about, you know, like anybody's ever done for just changing the input, you know. I'd just like, fuck it, you know. I'd be like, you know, customer education or something. Fuck those guys.
I don't want to be part of this conversation. So, again, we are not going to discuss business class, for super obvious reasons. Again, catvtechtalk@gmail.com. Attention, Jesse. So again, different types of trouble calls. So we'll start with video trouble calls. Now, I think kind of in the beginning of approaching a trouble call, no matter what type of trouble call it is, I feel like it's pretty much all the same to probably me and you.
I know, in the sense of, you know, if it's a signal level issue, it is all the same.
Correct. But, and we'll get definitely more in depth on that. But I think real quick, again, we did have that little disclaimer on how to attack the install. And I want to say the same on the trouble call. This is how we do things. It's not how it should necessarily be done, but it was the way that we found it the easiest way to do it. So anything we suggest, this is just our suggestions, you know, please don't hold it to us. It's different in every system. And again, from what you've heard in previous episodes and from what me and Jesse are finding out, as long as I've known him, just even being from north to south, these things can be very different, the way you attack them. But like you said, I think if it's a signal issue, we all kind of start the same, but I think we'll go to really going to the customer and finding out what the problem is.
You know, like work orders are never almost ever completely correct. So like you'll get a job, it'll say, internet slow speeds or something, right? You'll get
Yeah.
out there and the internet's just fucking fine. It's a DTA in a bedroom, right? Like you can't really go off of that based on my experience. But something I did on the way is I always pulled the modem, right? I wanted to know what my levels look like before I got there, right? So if I pull it up, it's all in the red, looks like shit. Or if I pull it up and it's offline, or I pull it up and it's, if it's good, it gives me a general idea what I'm working with, right?
Yeah.
I would always, knock on the door. How are you? I'm yada yada, and I would ask them, you're having trouble. Where are you having issues? And I'd let them tell me, and I'd take 2 to 3 minutes and let them explain what's going on. The first thing I would, if it was a signal level issue, I would go straight to the ground block, and I would determine from right there, okay, I'm either going to the tap or I'm working my way back inside the house. So I just split that completely in half in a matter of 10 seconds by hooking my meter up. So to me, that's the first step to take on a signal level issue is to go to the ground block. Now, if it was, okay, I got a box, it just won't power on. Now, I've already pulled the modem. If the modem's bad, I'm like, okay, well, we'll fix that. We still need to go fix, go to the ground block, work on our signal level. If the levels are good, I'm going to go straight to the problem and get it repaired.
Yeah, makes sense. I say that if you're a newer technician, I think you should always go to the ground block no matter what the trouble call is specifically for. Even if you're there for a remote issue, it might take you 20 seconds, but they say they give you about an hour. I'll put it more towards 45 minutes to be at that trouble call. If it's a simple remote job, just CATV Tech Talk tip number one of this episode, go to the ground block no matter what, in my opinion. Check the levels, especially if you're a new tech. You might pick something up you didn't know that was even there.
Well, I always went anyway after I repaired whatever was going on. And I would tell them about, look, I'm going to have you off for about 10 minutes. I'm just going to do some, I called it preventative maintenance, right?
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
And I'd go out there, I'd change, like I always change the connectors at the ground block. I'd always check for ingress and clean up any or find out where it's coming from. Like when I was a service tech, like I had a bunch of high passes, and if they had a DTA on it and it was had some noise on it, I just high pass that motherfucker. But not saying that's the right way, ladies and gentlemen. But I would clean stuff up, and a lot of times trouble calls sometimes turn into installs because you get out there and it's so like the levels are jacked up and they're so fucked up that it's actually easier to replace than it is to fucking patch here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, and like you said, the great thing about being a tech today is there are so many tools out there. And again, I know every system's different, every company's different. Um, Again, I'm familiar with Comcast. I worked for Comcast my entire cable career. Um, the way we did it, we had PHT, and it was fantastic to be able to pull that modem, the TV, everything, and see what it looked like before you even rolled up to that house. But I feel like that was also a double-edged sword because I always feel like I was getting that 5 to 7 at the end of the night, and PHT just happens to be tanking. I feel a lot of guys would take advantage of PHT, and if they saw that their 5 to 7 was a really shitty job, they'd happen to get stuck on their 2 to 4 and then not be able to make that 5 to 7. So PHT was great, but I also feel like it gave guys the opportunity to kind of fuck the system.
Well, that's just lazy text, man. Like, you know, outside, I see your point to that, but and I've got fucked like that too. Like, I had to pick up a trouble call one time. I'll never forget it as long as I don't think I've ever been that pissed off in my life. I think I had tickets to a baseball game or something that night too. I was fucking furious, and it was way out in the middle of nowhere, and it was a trouble call it just said DTA issue. And I was more pissed off because I had to go so far. Well, I got out there and it had a 6 and a 59 drop barreled together, right? And it hit 4 fucking poles down the street. Now it's only like 160 foot long, but I mean for 59 and 6 cable spliced together, that
Yeah.
was fucked, right? So I was like, God almighty. And then and that drop went straight into the windowsill, right? So I'm
You like
like,
damn windowsills.
dude, it happened a lot down here, man. Like it was barreled at the last bump pole, and it was like somebody ran out a 6 cable and like barreled into the 59 line that was running to the side of the house, and it was hooked. I'm pretty sure it was hooked to the gutter, and if it wasn't, it was hooked to like a piece of wood or something, like just hanging there. Like I literally just pulled it down, like it wasn't tied off to anything. You know, it had that old metal preform that was holding it up. You know how the old 59 drops were ran,
Yep.
and it run
Wait,
down.
the snubber?
We call it a preform. Those metal that twist around the cable.
Yeah. Oh my God, another freaking northern versus southern moment right there. So we call those snubber drops.
Yeah, that's whatever, man.
Chokers.
Chokers, yeah. Well, if you
Yeah.
look if you ever take one off, man, that cable's all fucked up. You ever
Well,
looked
yeah,
at it?
because it chokes the shit out of it.
Yeah, dude, it fucking throws the impedance of that cable off like a motherfucker. With that being said, it went into the damn windowsill, and from there it was split, and there was cable lines running fucking across the floors everywhere.
Jesus.
And it's like 5 o'clock, and I'm like, son of a bitch. So I ended up having to run a 4-pole 11 drop. They finally sent somebody to help me, and I'm glad they did because my fat ass couldn't get through that crawl space all the way. I fought like hell, dude, and I'm like, I got almost to the, and you know, I put on some weight over the years, but I wasn't that big then. It just so happened that a buddy of mine, his name was Kevin, he come and helped me, and Kevin was literally the epitome of Gumby, right? Like the skinniest human being I think I've ever seen in my life. And I was so thankful they sent him because I got to this one part in that crawl space, and I swear to God, I couldn't get my ass through it. So I was like, all right, well, fuck it. And I got so far, and I said, Kevin, please go over and grab that one other line over there. And it was so tight that he had to go under there with a fucking reach pole. But this is, you know, it was just one of those things. It was so fucked up. It was basically redoing the whole install. And the original problem was really, I mean, the signal, like, for shits and giggles, I was out there. I knew I wasn't going to make my baseball game. So I checked levels off that drop, that 59 drop, because I was just pissed off that I was there, I guess. I don't know. I knew I was going to replace it. I had like negative 16 on channel 70 or something. I think that's all I checked. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I'm not going to say it's bad at the tap. There's no fucking way. This piece of shit. And I like yanked it down. And yeah, it was just, that's one of those situations where it really was easier to just rebuild it than try to patch it to make it work and get out of there. Plus, if I did that, I would have got a repeat on it anyway, right?
Yeah.
So we ran like a 4-pole 11 drop, mounted a box. It wasn't fucking grounded, of course, because it was running in the windowsill. We grounded it like it was a brand new fucking install. We ran 3 outlets. Everything was good. Now, all they had was video, too, so that was one of those I couldn't pull to see what was going on the way because they had a DCT and 2 DTAs, so that was a kind of a different situation. But now in today's world, I can't, like, everything you can pull, I think, boxes and everything, and I think that's for almost every system, too.
Yeah, I was going to say things are changing and constantly evolving, and everything's IP based, so you can pretty much catch anything remote now.
Yeah, that back then, dude, that was like one of those, like, well, this might be easy, and then you get out there, you're like, son of a bitch.
But it was always nice when they started adding those and you could see everything out and you're like, score, it's an unplugged amp. You knew before you even showed up. But then you didn't realize the freaking dump truck took the goddamn drop out and it was 11 3-pole hit. Now you're fucked for the rest of the day. But,
yeah. That shit sucks, man.
But all right, so we show up to the trouble call. We talk to our customer. We find out what's going on. We go to the ground block, and I think you pretty much said it. You pretty much hit it on the head. You cut your time in half. You split everything in half. So divide and conquer.
Absolutely.
So I think this is a perfect opportunity for another CATV Tech Talk tip. This will be number 2 for this episode, is to make sure that you always divide and conquer. It truly cuts your time in half. Start in the middle, and if it works this way and not that way, well, go in that direction.
It's fairly simple, man. Like, I think a lot of times, and I did it too. Like, I've told you the story where my first trouble call was a fucking bad HDMI cable, and I just rewired everything because I didn't know. So I think this really pertains more to guys that are unexperienced. But when you get a little experience doing trouble calls, it's fairly simple. You go to the ground block, okay, it's good here. All right, and then I'm gonna check ingress. All right, I got fucking balls amount of noise here. This is crazy. Okay, I start disconnecting. Okay, this line's bad. All right, I'm gonna go find it. Might find a bad jumper, a bad connector, bad barrel, whatever the hell the case is. Maybe the line's bad. Like, you just work your way back in. You go to the ground block. Oh shit, this sucks. I go to the tap. Oh shit, this sucks. All right, well, that's going to system maintenance. Oh shit, it's good here. All right, let's replace the drop. It's fairly simple.
Yeah.
If you get in that routine, like after a while, it becomes kind of second nature. It's the biggest bitch about doing trouble calls to me. The only thing I ever bitched about was you're held to this standard. Like, it's a fine line, right? Because technically the customer owns the inside wiring, right?
Yep.
The company owns everything from the ground block back to the tap. So that's what we're responsible for. But at the same time, you're getting QC'd like a son of a bitch. And you got these trouble calls that, okay, it legitimately, the only reason they called us was because their fucking remote don't work. But you got fucking cable like running across the floor and splitting every room. And it's like, you can't leave that shit either, right? So, like, you're kind of stuck, right? You have to fix it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the downside of it. Like, if installs were done correctly the first time, doing service calls would be the greatest fucking thing in the world.
Absolutely. And that's what kind of kills me sometimes is guys take advantage of all that extra time that they get for those installs and they spend it sitting in their trucks, on Pornhub. They're not putting that effort into the install. One thing I can say is when you go to that ground block to really decide if you're going uphill or downhill, scan the house for ingress. It's the perfect spot to start to do that. Not every house has ingress, so you might scan it and be like, golden, I'm perfect. Um, like you said, I think a huge part of it too is assessing when you show up, because if you show up and you kind of look at everything, you hear what the customer's talking about, you walk around, get an idea of what the house looks like and what the cable structure's like. If it's not that bad, take that extra effort and just climb the tap, especially if you're trying to better your numbers. Climb the tap, replace the connection, even if you have great signal down on the ground. I mean, I remember putting my meter on the ground block and having great signal and going, I'll climb the tap either way, just to cover my ass, just in case I get QC'd, and to go up there and find that the fittings melted, but I still had great signal. So
You're right on that, and that was something that I bypassed a lot. And
I
it
think a
wasn't,
lot of us do. As you get comfortable doing it, you don't waste your time.
and to me, like, I didn't troubleshoot the right way in general, because, like, if I should have shot that drop, and you can't shoot it backwards when it's hooked to the plant. So
Yeah, I beg to differ on that one.
no, well, it's picking up modems. Modems are talking. That's what you're seeing. So
Exactly, but again, I think that's something that comes with experience, because you always knew that ingress really came in, like you said, modems always spiked up in the back end. Your ingress in the house was usually in the front. So
well,
if you scan
it can be
backwards,
coming anywhere. Impulse noise can come from anywhere. So I never shot it when it was hooked up. So I always went to the tap. Like, if I was going to shoot the drop, see if it was clean, I would do it at the tap, and it
yeah,
would be
that's preferred.
disconnected, and I would barrel it and put in. What That's something else too. You can pick up shit over the air. So if you disconnect the drop and it's just hanging there, you can actually pick up shit over the air. So you could be there shooting it and be like, "Damn, this drop's bad," and it's really not. So I
Yeah.
always barreled it and put a terminator on it when I went up to shoot it, if I was going to do that.
See, and that's one of those things where if you even doubt it for a second, you think it could possibly be the meter spiking or you're picking up another signal. Just replace the drop, cover your ass, just be done with it.
So it's one of those things, like, that's something I skipped a lot, but I ran a lot of drops too on trouble calls.
Yep.
But so I can't say I actually always skipped it, but, like, if it was
See,
now if it was
and
bad at the ground block, 99% of the time I would take a drop with me to the tap, even if the tap levels were bad. So I always did my job. You know what I'm saying?
well, and that's what I was about to say is if I'm climbing up to that tap, I might as well just take the drop with me and just get it over with and do it.
Yeah. So I mean, theoretically, the way to do it is to shoot it from the tap, but I'm with you. Like if you're going up there anyway, take it unless it's like a 5-pole fucking drop or
Exactly.
something. Yeah.
Unless it's something that's going to throw you behind. If you look at it, you're already running behind a little. If it's going to put you that much more behind, and it might not make a difference, then don't waste your time. But if you have the opportunity to, you'd be stupid not to.
Well, I'll say this, like, you know, in terms of the RF side, I think they all regard. Like, I was never a security tech. That was your thing, right?
Yep.
But for the most part, for on the RF side of things, it's all the same. It's when you start getting into the equipments when you start having various issues that kind of vary from each other. Um, like video calls, man, like there's a million things that can happen. Wrong input, they're missing like their channel packages, uh, aren't in the billing system the right way. That happens a million times, right? You've seen it.
Yep.
Um, Bad HDMI cables, bad component cables, the remote's bad, whatever. The TV's a piece of shit. We've all seen that. Um,
Well, it was
actually,
fine until you touched it.
that fucking right, man. I'm telling you. Yeah, them motherfuckers. Dude, I'm so glad you said that. This is gonna make this episode better. I had a job in the projects, man, and this cable guy, he was a contractor. This contractor, he went out to this government housing, and he put 2 DTAs in because they were at this government housing building. They pulled the return pad because there was so much noise coming out of them that it was shutting the node down. So they sent him a letter and said, we're no longer offering internet and phone out there. You can only have video. So what ended up happening is this lady, she had 2 DTAs. She was a younger girl too. She was like 19 or 20. I got out there and she says, well, I didn't need nothing fixed. The last tech broke my TV. And I get over there, and granted, she was right. He did break her TV. but as I called my supervisor about it, she starts telling him that I broke her TV.
Oh, Jesus.
And I didn't even touch the fucking thing. She just showed me what he did. You remember those DTAs had an RF in and an RF out, right?
Yep.
So the RF out, it had those pre-made jumpers. He tightened that motherfucker so tight on her barrel on the back of her TV that he broke the fucking barrel out, and it was like hanging, right?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, I didn't break it. And she's like on the phone with him, right? And he's like, I'm like, I didn't fucking break your TV. Like, I'm trying to tell this girl, and she's like shushing me and like shaking me away. And she's got my fucking phone in her hand. And I'm like, this fucking bitch, she's really going to put this off on me. Well, like, I just coded it, customer equipment or whatever, and I left. Well, 3 days later, now this was on a Sunday. Like on Sunday, the Saturday and Sunday shifts, like whoever's on those days,
Yep.
They had like a different supervisor covering for them. Well, like 3 days later, it was like Wednesday or whatever. My boss was back. He worked through the week, Monday through Friday. Well, he was back, and he called me into the office that morning. He goes, "Did you break a TV?" So and so. It's like, fuck no, I didn't break that goddamn TV. And that girl swore that the last tech there broke the TV. I said, I was there for 10 minutes, and I called the supervisor. I told him the fucking TV was broke. So this dragged on for like months, man. And the funny part was,
the supervisor went out to the house to talk to the customer and left, and then the chick called up and said the supervisor came and broke her TV.
It wouldn't surprise me. What's funny though is like a year later, I had a install at an apartment like on another part of town, and that fucking bitch it was her house. She had moved.
Oh Jesus!
And I was scared to death. I was like, I'm gonna walk out of here, and she's gonna fucking call and be like, he broke my fucking computer and my tablet. Because she was like a little bitch, man. I was worried to death about it. Granted, nothing happened because I was making her go with me, right? Like through the house.
Yeah. There you go. Let's put that as CATV Tech Top Tip number 3. If you walk in, the customer seems weird, you think the TV's broken, and you just get that strange vibe, have them turn it on. I actually wish we covered that in the how to attack and install. If the TVs are being moved, have the customer plug them in and have the customer turn it on. Because as soon as you are the guy who turns it on, you are the guy who now owns it.
Yeah, and you can't. And the thing is, you can't. Even though you do that, and that's a great idea, which I never moved anybody's stuff anyway. That's their job. But at the same time, they can tell the company whatever they want to.
Yeah,
It's
and that's true. And like you said, unfortunately, you said that little that young customer. It always seems to be the young customers because I mean I remember I had a video on demand trouble call, and I showed up. Same thing, girl, probably in her uh, 18, 19 years old, so early teen or late teens, early 20s, we'll say. And I go in and I'm like, so what's going on? On demand doesn't work. I'm like, all right, not a big deal. So I grab the remote, hit it, goes right to on demand. I'm like, so is on demand not working? And it kicked on. She's like, well, no, it still doesn't work. All right, go to a free movie. Go to play the free movie. Hit play, wait for it, comes through, starts playing. Miss, like, what's going on? Am I missing something? Is it a different, is it a specific type of movie that you're looking for? I was like, oh, maybe she's trying to watch HD by accident. It's a standard def box. She goes, well, look how long that took. And I'm like, excuse me? She goes, that took way too long for me. When I want that movie, I want it now. It's called on demand. And I'm like,
no, that's called entitlements. What that's
yeah.
called.
For shits and giggles, I'm like, all right, let's check this out. So I backed out all the way to live TV, hit my watch and started a timer, hit on demand, went to a free movie, played it. I think by the time I hit on demand to the time it played, it was maybe 45 seconds. And I look at her and I go, is that what you were talking about right there? She goes, yeah, that's bullshit. I'm like, perfect. I said, do you know where your cable comes from? And she looks at me like I'm an idiot, which clearly you could just tell the type of person she was at this point. And I was like, do you know where your cable comes from? And she goes, what are you talking about? I'm like, your cable comes from Lowell, Mass. And she was on the other part of Chelmsford. And nobody that I'm talking, nobody knows where these locations are, but they're probably a good, I don't know, we'll say at least 10 miles away from each other. So I looked at the broad and I was
So
like,
the hub site's 10 miles away.
oh, away from her house. So
Okay.
I was like, so the cables, where your cable comes from is about 10 miles down the road. I said, if you can find a video store within 10 miles of that hub, drive down to it, rent a movie, come back, and if this still ain't working, I'll fix it. Dude, that fucking chick reeled me up and down. I walked out of the house with a smile, and my fucking supervisor chewed me an asshole. But man, that dumb, young, entitled yup, it was horrendous. The fact that she just thought it took way too long for that.
Expectations are stupid too, man. Like, and that leads us into doing internet trouble calls that I think
God.
is perfect.
Oh, it's
Here's
so
the thing.
much.
Here's the thing that really stands out to me about internet trouble calls. When I was a service tech, the biggest thing you always get heard about was, well, I'm paying for this speed and I'm not getting it. Well, here's the thing. Most, like even me, like today, this is 2020, I have what 200 meg download service or whatever. I don't get that, right? Like none of my devices are set up, I don't think, to get all of that. So, but it works. It works fast. I don't have any trouble. So what's the fucking point? But you get these people that nothing you can do can make them happy. Like I had when Comcast first started, was it the 100 meg service? Was that right? Maybe, or the 80?
Oh,
Um,
for us, it was when they went D3. So when we
when they
got our
first started
first,
putting out those dories, those gateways, they
no, we
raised the
first got
speeds.
D3 modems we got D3 UBs, the blue ones, and they went
Yeah,
to,
yeah. That's
it
what I'm
was
getting at.
50 over 10. I remember because it was epic for Comcast at the time. It was 50 over 10.
I think it was like 60 or 80 down. Like it was more than you had. That sounds like it was.
Up
That's
here,
it's years ago, but
yeah.
I'm just using this for an example because I
Yep.
forgot that. But at the same time, say it was 80-20, something like that, or whatever. They and what we're talking about, it's like an 80 meg download, 20 meg upload. If so, I can clarify.
Yep.
This guy, I remember. We'll just use that for the example. But I remember this guy specifically. He's like, "Man, I'm paying for this 80-20, and I'm only getting 28." He's got a fucking Dell desktop on Windows. I think it had like back then. It was like, what was it? There was Windows 8 wasn't even a thing yet. I don't think it was like whatever before Windows 8. What was before Windows 8?
XP.
XP. That's it. Yeah, there you go. I forgot about that. And it had XP on it. It was slow as shit, dude. Like when you hit Google, like you know how on anything you touch, you hit Google and it just boom, there it is.
Yep.
His was like dragging step by step to open Google. And I'm like, brother, your computer fucking sucks, man. And I said this like incognito. I was like, sir, your computer's out of date. And what that really meant was your fucking computer's a piece of shit. But I couldn't say that directly, so I had to say it incognito.
You're so much better guy than I am. I remember telling a customer that his computer was like that old dog that you just had to bring out behind the barn and unfortunately put the slug to the head. And yeah.
Well, the way I fixed that one was they gave us laptops, and I hardwired out of his modem, and I was getting like 79 and 19 or whatever, you know.
Yep.
And I showed him. He's like, "Oh, okay, all right." Well, since we're onto this topic, talking about slow speeds, I have to tell you the ultimately greatest story in CATV Tech Talk history right now.
Jesus.
And it's going to lead into and you're going to picture it. It's going to take about 6 minutes, and it's going to be the greatest, maybe not that long, but it's going to be the greatest story we've told thus far on our show. My second day in the field, I don't know the area because I'm not from there. The area I worked in, I've heard of it. I've been there a time or two, but I've never really spent time over there. I don't know the area. I don't know the people I work with really, like my co-techs, I guess you'd call them. I barely know my supervisors. My second day in the field. I don't know about these houses.
Co-techs.
You know, co-techs. There you go. You do
I thought you
know,
meant like the pad for a minute. I'm like, wait a minute, like a maxi pad or?
No, dude, that's like coat. Yeah, okay, I got you.
Co-techs.
No, like
Jesus.
like the guys on my team, you know, like I didn't know those guys, and so I didn't know the area. No, fellow techs. There you go. So I didn't know like all the houses that were like fucked up, stupid repeats they call in all the time, kind of thing.
Yep.
That you kind of find out after about 6 months of working in an area, you know. So I get this job, and it's way out by this big lake, okay? And I don't think nothing about it. Like, I'd already had a weird experience. Like, my first trouble call, this woman opened the door naked. Like, that was my first ever job I ever had. And she had a glass of wine in her hand, and it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. This was day one. Well, day two fucking topped it, okay? So after day one, I wasn't sure this was for me because I was like, well, I would have banged that girl. She was beautiful, but I didn't want to lose my job. So
all right, keep going.
Anyway, day two topped. I get this job. It's out by this lake. I get to this house. It's like great big white house. You know the columns that make it look like a colonial house?
Yep.
Like those great big columns. It was gorgeous, man. It looked like a mini White House. Well, I go up and I knock on the door, and this little man, he's probably, shit, I don't know. He might have been 5'2", okay, 5'3". He was little bitty. He was really nicely dressed. He had like a collared shirt and a little bow tie and like slacks. It's like in the middle of the day. It's like 11 o'clock in the afternoon. He's dressed to go to a fucking funeral. Anyway, I said, sir, I talked to you on the phone. You know, you said you were having trouble with your internet. He goes, oh, yes, sir. He says, come right in. I walk in the door, and I'm immediately uncomfortable. And since I say pretty much anything I fucking want to, there was 2 giant golden dick statues right inside the door, okay? And I'm not kidding, dude. They were like giant golden cocks. And
sounds like a very hard situation to be in.
I was like, oh, God. And now this is the second day. My first day, the naked chick opened the door. Now this is my second day. And I'm like, I'm not sure this is what I need to be doing. And
It's ballsy of you to continue.
well, yeah, I figured I was like going down into Buffalo Bill's lair, and I was going to end up in a fucking hole somewhere. You're saying, put.
God, I'd hate to be in some type of shaft.
uh, he'd be like, put the lotion on the skin. That's what I thought was happening. Okay, so right inside the door, like to the right, there was like these steps that went downstairs. He goes, yeah, it's down here. I'm like, oh great! I swear to God, he's really going to put me in a hole. He's going to like tase me and put me in a hole. And I'm walking down these steps. Well, on the wall, there's like staggered
fingernails
pictures
from last texts that were there.
No. It's not that bad. It's actually worse than that. There's staggered pictures going down the wall, okay? And it's of him and another man, and they're doing things. That's all I'll say. And it's like broadcasted for anybody that walks into his fucking house.
Which is okay. Two guys can do
fine.
whatever they want.
That's fine, but
I get
but
it.
don't act like, when some public service person comes into your home, like a plumber or any fucking body, that there's pictures of you doing these things, like blown up, like big 20 by 20 pictures staggered down the wall, that this is normal. Because it's not normal.
Maybe some things don't look so spectacular unless they are blown up, and that's what makes them feel better. So,
it made me a little scared. And not necessarily scared. I was very uncomfortable. I get to the bottom of the stairs. Now, I told you to take a little bit. I get down here. He's got a desk with an old-ass fucking desktop. Like, it's horrible. And right next to it is a big sex swing. And it had, like, the suit on the wall with, like, the mask and all the shit. And I'm like, dude, I'm really going to die down here. Like, my mind was just spinning. And I'm like, this is so bad. He's like, yeah, it's not running real good. It's real slow. Well, I sit down. I'm almost scared to touch his mouse, but I do. I take the risk. And as soon as I rolled over, the screensaver went away and a big dick popped up. And that was his background picture. So this guy really liked this. And I went to click Internet Explorer, and I was going to run a speed test, and then I was going to pull my laptop and check it. But as I hit Internet Explorer, it's just sitting there, how it's circled, them old desktops. And I said, okay, sir.
By the side of the road, maybe you had to spit on it to get it to go.
Oh, man, I thought up to myself as I was like, how can I get back upstairs? So I was like, hey, man, I forgot my meter. I'll be right back. So I went upstairs, I ran to the truck, and I called my boss. I was like, dude, and this was my first boss who was like a little bit older than me, but like real cool and like chilled, Yeah. And I was like, dude, like something's wrong here, man. And I was telling him about it, and it turned out like this guy had called in like every day for like months and months and months, and everybody had told him his computer was a piece of shit. And it just so happened that my boss at the time was he lived in that area, and he was actually at home on his lunch break. So he like drove over there, and he goes up to the door, and I don't know how he didn't get fired for this, but he said, I told you, motherfucker, we've been out here 30 fucking times over your goddamn computer. You call us again, we're going to charge you for every time we've made a trip. And we never heard from that guy again, but I was very sure that I was going to be stuck in a hole and, fed out of a basket, and it puts the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. I just knew that was coming, man.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever. Nope, nothing like that. You win.
That is the greatest. I probably got another one that I'll remember eventually, but that's a true story. Scary fucking shit, man.
Jesus Christ.
But back on to what we were talking about internet trouble calls. I just had to throw that in there, that most internet trouble calls today, it seems like, are equipment issues.
Yeah. Towards the end of doing it, the biggest complaint I always heard was Wi-Fi. That was always an issue with Comcast modem. As the modems got better, the Wi-Fi got better, or I'm sorry, the more the modems got faster, the better the Wi-Fi definitely got with them. The XB6 was the last modem that they put out when I was there, and that one had pretty good range. I could have been a salesperson for the Google Mesh system. I swore it up and down. I had customers that had countless problems. We were going back there constantly for Wi-Fi. I would make the suggestion. They'd actually go out and spend the money, and we would never see them again. So Wi-Fi was really the biggest problem I had with the internet. Like you said, I would always try to hardwire and get that speed and be like, hey, listen, this is what you're actually getting. Wi-Fi has way too many variables. Um,
Well,
but
at this point, like if you have good RF signal, there's no ingress. Okay, that's check one. You're good, right?
yep,
If the modem is working properly, it's locked on, it's activated correctly, and you're getting it out of the modem, whatever speed, or if it's just working in general, if that's what their problem is, you're checked off. That's option two. That's number two.
yep,
So you got good signal, you got a good device. With Wi-Fi in general, like the biggest problem I ever had with that was the great big houses
yeah,
where, like, even if you centrally locate the router, you say there's a third story, it's going through a lot of block and shit trying to, that signal disintegrates through, it slowly decreases between point A and point B. So it's like anything, like even at my house, I live in a single level house, and my router is right inside my front door. All right. Well, if I go outside and my walls are made of block, right? If I go outside, walk around the corner, I go from 4 bars to 2 bars. Like, it just is the way it is. So if you're going through, imagine 2 other stories, and that's one of those situations. Like, that's only happened once, but there's been instances where we actually, this is when the home security thing started, where we had home security techs where they would bring out Cat5 cable to us so we could, run, like, we'd hardwire like a PlayStation upstairs or something to get them to
yeah.
quit calling. But that was like a one-off situation. Um, Honestly, if you have good levels, a good device, the Wi-Fi issue is when people try to use too many devices. Like, you got to think, in a house that's got, say a mom, a dad, a daughter, and a son. Well, mom's got a phone and the TV in the living room with like a Roku box and a laptop. That's 3 devices. Dad's got a laptop, a phone, and whatever. The daughter's got a phone and a tablet and a fucking computer. Now we're at like 9 devices. The son's got, his phone, his Xbox, and what I'm saying? Like, shit
Yeah,
adds up.
yeah.
So,
I
they're
mean,
bound to have issues.
I guess, and this is the tough part because again, I came from Comcast. I really, truly only know how they ran. And anybody listening, again, what we're saying might be very much so different from what you have. So what you guys run into out in the field. But the only other issue I'd really see with the internet, and again, this is why I say it could be different for everybody. When Comcast put out their stories, they had the routers that were dual band. So they had the 2.4 and the 5 network. And any
Right.
technician knows that the 2.4, you get more distance, slower speed. The 5 is a much shorter range, but faster speed. For some reason, Comcast started merging those two together and naming them the exact same. So the problem I noticed with that is you'd have a customer that was sitting on top of their modem. They would automatically connect to the 5 being the faster of the two, and they would end up walking away. Well, they'd get to that point where you'd still have connection, but not a great internet speed, and the phone wouldn't be smart enough to automatically kick over to that 2.4. So personally, I like to be able to split the networks up. That way, if the customer was having problems, they had that option to click on their Wi-Fi and click on the 2.4 if they were farther away, or if they were closer and they wanted faster speeds, they could actually tell what network they were on. I felt that reduced trouble calls because it was giving the customer more control. So they would know if they were getting their slow speeds, they could be like, well, I'm on the 2.4. That makes sense. I'm not sure where Comcast is at with that right now, being a year later. Again, let us know. Um, but I found that once you divided their network, it made it easier for them, and it improved their Wi-Fi and their experience with the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I can see that. I like my router's got the 2.4 and the 5, and I've separated all my devices, and I don't seem to ever have an issue. Actually, like I live in a fiber to the home system, so I stream TV, right?
Yep.
Like my live TV comes off of an app that I use through an Amazon Fire Stick, and it's live TV, and they run a cable. It's a cable company that I pay for, but so like everything in my house is streamed, and
Yeah.
I can't tell you the last time I've had a hiccup. So now, granted, my house is not great, crazy big. I got 4 bedrooms, but they're all reasonably small, so it's kind of clustered together.
Yep.
So I can't say that well, it's far apart or So, but I don't have any issues. Um, to me, like I said, you got good levels, good device. Within reason, there's not 10,000 devices on one router. You're probably going to be okay. And if it's not a giant freaking house.
Yeah. I mean, if I was to really say anything out of it, again, CATV Tech Talk tip number 4. If you have the opportunity to hardwire something, hardwire it. If your modem's sitting right next to it and it's there. Jesse makes fun of me all the time. I absolutely try to hardwire as much as I possibly can in my house. Pretty much behind every TV, I have a switch. Xboxes, Apple TVs, anything that requires internet that has a Cat 5 jack, I plug into it if I have the opportunity to.
Yeah, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's a little nerdy about it. That's all I'm saying. Uh, the last thing's really to cover, kind of talk about a little bit, like telephone, voice service. I kind of feel like that's a dying thing.
Well,
Um,
I feel like a lot of technicians nowadays, they just go, you know what, your best bet is to plug a phone directly to the back of the modem and get the wireless base sets, which
yeah,
I can agree with them because when it comes to the end user, the customer, it is easier for them because it's, virtually impossible for you to get a short on that type of, I mean, it's possible, but chances of that versus a 2,000 square foot house with an old, copper phone system from the 40s, yeah, you got a much better shot of not having problems with
dude.
the base right into the back of the modem.
Looking back at my entire cable career, the one thing I hated more than anything. Now, I draft dodged to security like a draft dodger, okay? Like, I was set up for class like 16 times and I kept finding ways to not have to go. Like, I got in trouble on purpose before, so I didn't have to go. Like,
Oh,
I'm not kidding. I didn't want nothing to do with that shit. Now, mainly because when I worked on phones, like I hated fucking dealing with alarms, right? That shit
yeah.
sucked. And like I can control the coax, I can control the RF signal in a reasonable amount of time. Man, when there's 40 fucking phone jacks hanging everywhere and they're all backfed to this one and loops to this one and loops to, man, that is a fucking bitch. And especially like the only time I ever couldn't talk somebody out of the base set situation was when they had an alarm through like ADT or whatever, and
Yeah.
that shit sucked. Now I think we're kind of to a point technologically where we're kind of getting past that. So
Yeah.
I think in the next, I really believe in the next 10 years there might not be anybody with a house phone. I just don't think I think right now, and this is my theory behind it, and I thought this years ago, I think the only reason it's still offered or the only reason that people have it is because Comcast and Charter and Cox and all these major corporations, they are publicly traded. Well, Cox isn't, but I know Charter and Comcast are publicly traded companies. They have stock prices, right?
Yeah.
Well, they want to go in and say, well, we have 5 million phone users, phone subscribers, or whatever, right? I'm just throwing a number.
Yeah.
So they'll roll these packages together. Well, they'll charge a little more for internet, a little more for TV, and they'll give them the fucking phone, right?
Yeah. And I always said the same, just to keep the stockholders happy.
Yeah, and that's all it is, man. That's what I believe. With that being said, there's not really much to talk about troubleshooting phone. I will say this, guys. Anybody out there listening, if you got dial tone out of the modem, your best bet, if they are dead set on keeping phone jacks, just rewire those motherfuckers. Don't even try to start pulling them and checking continuity here and going to this one and going to that one, because you're liable to just fuck something up anyway and cause a short for yourself, and then you're chasing another problem. That shit sucks. Just rip them out and put them back and be done with it.
And another absolute ass opposite. I absolutely love phone. I
Fuck you.
Dude, it was my favorite fucking thing to troubleshoot. I had so much fun doing it. I went to school to be an electrician. Never did it. Just went for some reason. It went right to Comcast. So I was familiar with the whole negative positive thing. Once you have that mindset down, you realize there's two pairs. It becomes extremely easy. Um,
When the color codes are right on both ends, it's not hard for me.
Correct. And I do agree there. There are certain stipulations where it's like, all right, if you can get them to plug into the back of the modem, just get them to do it. If I can give any tips on troubleshooting it, go into the basement. If they're all home runs and they go to one NID, cut them all and put them on rocker blocks. Pay attention
What
to
are
what
you
you're cutting.
calling a rocker block? A Scotch lock?
No, so Comcast issued these rocker blocks, and what I refer to as a rocker block, they came in blocks of, and again, don't quote me. I want to say it was
Threes?
nope, it came in blocks of 6 and 12, and they were just these little
Oh yeah,
rocker
yeah. The
blocks.
punch
Yeah,
down blocks.
well,
Is that
not
what
a
you're saying?
punch down block, but you could actually pull this little tab up. You could put your red and green wire in, or blue and white, or blue white, depending on if you're using Cat 5. And when you push the plastic cap down, it would bite into the wire.
Okay, no, I always if everything was home run, I always cut it and I just use Scotch locks.
No, this was a way to add 12 lines, but this is so if these are in your area. I thought they were the easiest to troubleshoot because what you do is you go down there if you had 7 lines or 6 lines, just for the sake of argument, since I just said they make them in 6 and 12. You would find your feed coming in, put that into your modem first or into your rocker block first. All you would do is disconnect all the lines, check them all for dial tone. Whichever one has dial tone, that tells you that's your one coming from the modem. If you're not getting any dial tone at all, that tells me that the problem that you're having is coming from the line that's actually feeding the system. But what you would do is you'd put the EMTA right onto the rocker block, and what you would do is you'd make a little pigtail to put your butt set on. And everybody knows once a short hits, it cuts your dial tone. And all you would do is you'd put the next set of wires in, turn your butt set on, press the rocker down. If you still had dial tone, you knew that line was good, and you would just keep pressing down each one until you got to one that dropped your dial tone. Once that one dropped your dial tone, you knew that was the one that was giving you the short. To me, that was the easiest way to do it, was just to put it all on a
Yeah,
rocker.
but
Now it's
that's
to
on a
find a
home
short.
run. That's on a home run situation.
It is.
Like
So
99.9999999. I could do this all night. You're gonna have a phone system that's been patched and added on to, and it's so fucked up. I'm telling you, fuck it.
So, to Jesse's point, then, what I would do is I would try to find the jack specifically like the customer's trying to use. I would put my toner on it and try to find the one common place that they all went back to. If you can do that, all you have to do is successfully get a line from your EMTA to that bunch of wires, and you'd be golden. I
That
think
that that is true and not true because I had that same mentality. Okay, this shit's fucked. I'm gonna run a home run line to feed the rest of the house, and I should be fine. And I'll jump it back to feed the alarm. That shit doesn't always work, man. I'm telling you, because the phone system's so fucked. It's been in there since like before before gas was $1 a gallon.
but again, that's when you pick and choose. You don't start hacking and dashing shit out that's fucking 20,000 years old, or that's been in there since freaking Adam Graham Bell invented the goddamn phone.
It's like this. For me, okay, I'm in here with this 97-year-old woman, okay? The only thing she cares about is watching her soap opera at 2 o'clock and getting her phone call from her friend Janet that she's known since 1912. Okay, that's all she cares about. And she's got a phone in the kitchen, and she's got a phone by her bed, and that's it. And by God, there's 9,652 fucking jacks in that house. And for me, fuck every one of them. I'm going to run those two to the fucking net. I'm going to splice them together, and I'm going to say, you got dial tone. Congratulations, sweetheart. You talked to Janice. You tell her I said, what's up, baby? And that's it. That's it. Like,
Well, You're talking about an install. We're talking more of
No,
a
I'm not installing. I'm
project.
there. She don't have dial tone. I ain't fucking
Okay,
with
well
all them
that's
god.
different. That's different, but that comes back to the rocker block. All I'm doing is I'm isolating which one's giving me the short. You're just isolating those two to the phone system. So same concept, just a little different.
Yeah, I just didn't want to mess with all the bullshit. Try to fix the short. I didn't see no point in wasting that much time, and I'd get so frustrated. I'd be like, I'd want to quit. So
See,
I'd
and
be like,
that's why I found it was the easiest way to just put that rocker block in, throw your butt set on there, and as soon as you fucking press down the one that shorts it out, you found it.
yeah, I sucked at phone anyway. I'll admit it, but that was my way of doing it though.
All right. So if you're new, do it my way. If you've been here long enough to know that fucking phone doesn't really matter and it won't exist much longer, yeah. So,
Yeah, most of these new guys probably haven't messed with a phone line ever. To be
no,
honest with
probably
you, they
not.
probably haven't. Like especially with how security systems are now, like ADT's kind of becoming. I mean, I'm sure they're still around, but they're becoming less and less relevant. Like these alarm systems that piggyback off dial tone.
Yep. I mean, so my existing job that I do right now, I don't think I've ever really explained what I do on here, but I guess I would call myself a low voltage security technician. So I deal with a lot of access control, networking. That's why I like my Cat 5 cables, uh, all different, all different types of things. But what I've realized is alarms really haven't changed much. They have, but they haven't. It's still continuity. It's still relays. But every panel I still use today has dial tone go to it. Every elevator still has dial tone going to it. So it's something that we see very rare, but it's something that's still out there, and I kind of don't see it going away. Maybe the old, copper lines coming from the main station downtown, that's going to disappear, and I think eventually everything will be 100% VoIP. But I still think there'll always be that need for that there, because I have yet to install a security panel that I do not put dial tone to. We do put in cell phone backups in them, don't get me wrong. I have seen them when they run 100% off of that, but any ones that we do, we like to make sure that they have some type of reliable dial tone going to it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. They said that about VHS tapes too, man. This is the future, and it's going to be around forever. You can buy them for $5 for a quarter now.
Well, I say the
But
same thing about coax. It's going to be all Cat 5 or Cat 6 before you know it.
yeah, man, coax. Like when we talk about these things, guys, like we're talking about an HFC system. It's all coax. There's going to come a day where I feel like my at my house. I think I've talked about this before. My house, we have one Cat 5 line that runs from the ONT or OTN, whatever the hell they call them, the optical network terminal. That's what they call them, I believe. The
AKA
five,
node.
yeah, a little mini. I guess you'd call it that, a little mini node there at the side of the house, and it runs to my router, and that's it. That's the only line in the house,
Yeah.
and I think we're going to come to a point where that's the new norm.
Yeah. And I
So
agree with you there. I know we've touched base on it already, so I agree though. Um,
So we can talk little bit if you want to about troubleshooting home security, but buddy, I don't know jack shit about it. I avoided that like the plague.
I honestly, if you're a security technician, you're not new to the cable game. You're definitely familiar with it. Um,
Well, just
honestly,
tell us this then. Just tell us this. Just tell us what was shitty about it.
I don't know if I want to be that negative out of the gate about it. No, it wasn't. It wasn't super shitty. Comcast definitely had a lot of growing pains. I think of it was probably for a lot more financial gain. I don't want to say that, but their product wasn't quite 100% that it should have been. It got better with time. My biggest gripe was the equipment was continuously changing. From the time I started home security with Comcast, right when it hit New England, from the time I left Comcast, they probably had 8 different door window sensors, which drove me crazy because you'd go into this customer's house that had the product and liked the product, and they would constantly expand and add, and over time things would fail and you'd go in and replace them. But you'd be walking around this customer's house and they have 15, all these different types of sensors. Well, now they have all these different types of batteries. So you bring in all these different batteries in. Honestly, troubleshooting them, if the sensor was dead, it usually ended up being the battery. And if it fell offline, you would delete it and you would re-add it. And that would pretty much be it. Everything else was third party. That was really it. The only other problem that I'd see a lot with security trouble calls is customers would call up into customer care and say, I'm having issues with my home security. I'm getting a low battery signal, and Comcast customer care would be like, perfect, awesome. Go to the store, buy a battery, put it in yourself. It's super easy, no problems. 9 times out of 10, that customer would swap that battery out and hit the reset button inside that sensor and factory reset it. Then you were going to that house and re-adding it to the system. I wish they'd never had customers do it. I wish they moved the button on it. Again, I can't really think of anything that would help a technician go faster. If you do hardwired panels, continuity is your best friend, which again, if you do it, you know that. I don't know. If my suggestion, maybe here we go. So my CATV Tech Talk tip number 5, if they're not going to pay you extra to do home security, don't waste your time.
Yeah, avoid that shit like the plague. Trust Jesse.
Yes, there we go. Trust Jesse. Again, CATV Tech Talk at gmail.com. Attention, Jesse. All complaints.
Overall, man, with what we were covering today, attacking a trouble call, I think it covers, overall, I'd say 90% of trouble calls can be fixed by repairing levels and cleaning up ingress, right? Like, even now, especially now that everything's so heavily reliant on the upstream, right? And
Yep.
your MER is important, your BER is important. Like, all that's really crucial with how things are technologically at this point. But I feel like you have those boxes checked, you're really in good shape. I think we should just close this out today with like some things that they should just kind of, be sure to check on trouble calls. What do you think?
Yeah, kind of just like what we talked about with the how to attack install. Just quick things to remember for every trouble call that they come across, and they do. I know the first one we talked about with the installs, I believe, should be the first one with trouble calls as well.
Yeah, wall plates, man.
Wall plates, 100%.
I said it before. Charter had come out with a thing saying, 70% of repeat calls are triggered by a connector.
Yep.
Well, in a wall plate, you got a connector behind the wall plate. You got a barrel. Most of them are pieces of shit. And you got a jumper with 2 connectors. So that's a big thing to take care of. Ingress, clean up ingress.
Yep. Clean ingress. Just get rid of it. Check it.
Fix it.
Double check it. Triple check it.
Like, and if you're going to the tap anyway, just take the drop with you, unless it's a crazy long drop. But if you're going and it's a crazy long drop, shoot that thing for noise. Make sure it's clean. If it's bad, replace it.
Absolutely.
Don't leave us a barrel drop on a trouble call.
No.
Just don't.
I don't
do
think
it.
there should ever be a never.
I don't think so either. I was always against it. And I worked for 2 major companies in the United States, and one said absolutely fucking not, and one said, yeah, this is cool, man, just don't put it under load. And what I mean by under load is between the span clamp and the P hook, so that would be where the weight is, right? Not under load. But to me, if you got a barrel that's like rolling down the strand, there's a barrel and it's zip tied, to the fucking strand. That thing's getting rained on, it gets cold, it gets hot, it expands, it contracts. You got one that's hanging there that's got a jumper going into the tap. It's same difference. It's hot, it's cold, it expands, it extracts. Just a potential point of failure. There's a barrel in the drop, fucking replace it.
Yep.
Don't even think about it. Just do it. Okay, this is bad, I'm going to replace it. 59 lines, we've talked about that before. 59 cable at this point in technology is fucking obsolete. If there is absolutely no way around it, you need to talk to the fucking homeowner. You need to say, this has to be replaced. With the tools I have, I can't replace this. If it's on like an outside wall, like on a second story or something,
Yeah.
and and they don't want it, wrapped or anything, you got to say, I don't have the proper tools to do this. But
Or
you
try
can.
to put a Mocha box, a Mocha only driven box on it if possible.
So they do have those wireless boxes now. Is that what you're talking about?
No, when I left Comcast, we had the XI again. It's been it seems like it's been forever since I've been there, but there were XIDs and XI3s. I think the XI3s were wireless boxes, but the XIDs, they were just these little, I don't like to use the term, but slave box that would talk to the DVR. That's how it would get, and it would get it all its information strictly based off of Mocha. It did not run off of transmit. It did not run off of signal. It did not require any of that. It was strictly Mocha.
So as long as it was connected to that network, it would work.
As long as your PHY rates were good, you were fine.
So, that even to me, I feel like if there's a way or any way around it, like I wouldn't mess with it, if you can't replace it. But most of the time you can replace 59 lines. Most of them were drilled in fucking corners and floors and shit. Just replace them. If they're in the wall and they're going down the crawl space, most of the time you can tie them off and just pull it back down. It'll help you in the long run. Another tip we've talked about, always wear your booties. People will love you for that. And good morale.
Booties get you tips.
Yeah, but at the same time, man, good morale, they may not call back in for something stupid,
Yeah, and I think that's gonna close in with my CATV Tech Talk tip number 6 and probably final one for this episode. Customer education. And I'm sure you can agree, customer education is actually one of the biggest things you could do on a trouble call. We all know how important it is for installs, but I can't stress how important it is to educate the customer on their problem, on what caused their problem, on how you fix their problem, how you can prevent their problem, and if it does happen again, the steps that they can take as a customer before even trying to call in and reach out to the tech support.
And since this is like an open kind of thing, something I did sometimes, like if I was at a house that I kind of figured that, they're going to forget this, I wrote it down, I'd leave them my phone number and I'd re-explain it to them like while I'm driving, like not my home phone number or my cell phone, but like my work phone. And if they called, I'd answer it sometimes and I'd be like, yeah, man, you just use input, whatever. And that saved me a lot of repeats too. And I know it kind of sucks, but I wouldn't answer it after I got off work, but I'd answer it during the day, and that saved me a little bit of a headache. But
all right, ladies and gentlemen, there you hear it. Jesse does not answer his phone off work hours, but he's going to encourage you to answer your phone while you're driving. So again, please don't do that. catvtechtalk@gmail.com/Jesse. I think we just need to wrap this up before you get any else more in trouble. So
I don't know how we're getting in trouble. That's what Bluetooth's for, man. You press the button. Like, that's it. Hey, hello. Who gives a shit? Come on, man.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks again for listening. I appreciate you guys taking the time to subscribe to us, to come back weekly, to hear what we have to say. I've told you where to send your questions about 1,000 times and your Jesse complaints. We love those. Those are our favorite. We're going to start reading those weekly soon. Anything else, Jesse, that you can think of?
Everybody out there, just know that I love you deeply from the bottom of my heart.
All right, and that's Jesse going over bullshit, which we'll cover next week. And that's All right, guys, you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you guys later.
See ya.
See ya. Like what you just heard? Then don't forget to click that subscribe button. Questions for the host or just want to say hello? You can email us at catvtechtalk@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/catvtechs. Thanks again for joining us, and don't forget, climbing, crawling, drilling, driving is just the beginning.